It's time to strap in and get ready for the front stretch. Presented by Joe's Karting. Dan and Dirk are live in the studio today, ready to hear from you at 402-573-0590.
Well, good morning to you, race fans, and welcome to the front stretch, presented by Joe's Karting at Council Bluffs, online at joeskarting.com. Fast-paced white knuckle racing just across the river on 23rd Avenue. Over by AMC 17, Ruby Tuesdays, Quaker Steak and Lube, who is the official
Quaker
watering hole.
Right,
hey, by the way,
Steak?
any NFL fans, any Husker fans, every Saturday during Husker game day, Quaker Steak and Lube is giving away tickets to the upcoming weekend's game. They've got pairs of tickets that are going to be given away, plus all this Husker gear and Husker prizes. If you want to get over and watch the game, free to play along, enjoy yourself some nice cold beers. I found out in a very fortunate way that they have Oktoberfest on tap now from Sam Adams, so my no drinking for a while has gone away. That also went down the drain pretty quickly during Joe Kaczynski's surprise birthday party Sunday during Championship Sunday at I-80 Speedway, and I violated that quite severely. Quite severely. Thank you very much. I had a designated driver. I had it all planned out. She didn't know she was going to be the designated driver, but she turned into one very quickly. Anyway, so get over to Quaker Steak and Lube on Saturdays during Husker game days. You can watch them lose and win yourself some stuff. So nice little dig there from an Iowa fan who's 2-0. Let's move on to last night's. See how I just kind of moved the train right past the opportunity for Dirk to rebuttal anything there? We're going to move on.
I'll be speaking sometime. Don't worry.
That's true. Never too worried about that. The show for you today, we're going to recap last night's race at Richmond. Hopefully an ambulance doesn't get in the way and get a sidetrack. Turn number 2, Stan Cisar will call in. We've got a lot to recap from the voice of the Speedway, Stan Cisar, including the final day of the RaceSaver Nationals at Eagle Raceway and then the final race for the for the Nebraska Cup at Eagle Raceway on Friday. So we got 2 races to recap with Stan. We'll talk about that. And then turn number 3, we are going to announce, I feel so good to finally say this, we're going to announce the next Crewman for a Day contest. I've had so many people that are like, hey, we're 6 races before Kansas. When's are we going to get this race?
Well,
hey, we're
working with a new outfit.
Yeah.
So, it's one of the big sexy teams, but they moved a little slower than what the others have with us, but it was worth the wait, believe me.
Absolutely. You're going to love hearing about that. In turn number 3, so make sure you tune in for that. It's an absolutely free contest for any of you who want to participate in it. And then in turn number 4, that's going to be our news and notes and kind of conversation. So do you want to recap the race at Bristol, or should we just kind of talk about some of the news that happened from Bristol, obviously the big story that happened with Denny Hamlin, or should we just go into Richmond?
Well, it was Darlington
that
had the big story. Denny Hamlin. Well, we could talk about Bristol. It was a good race, too.
It was a good race.
But, no, I think everybody that is into racing is well aware with everything that happened with the 11 car.
It's really the unfortunate part of us doing the show once a week, because these stories come out on Wednesday, and by the time our show comes around, everyone's done talking about it, so we're just we're left with the breadcrumbs, and oftentimes we choose just to kind of move on and let the subject die.
Well, we did a live show, and so now we've had 2 races in between our shows. So, it does put us in a bad spot. But, for anybody that didn't know, the 11 car got an encumbered win with illegal rear suspension components, the exact same situation that Joey Logano went through several months ago.
And thus, he's not in the playoffs.
But, it cost Joey Logano. Denny Hamlin already had a win.
Yeah.
So he's still in the playoffs, but he didn't get the 5 bonus points. He got penalties and everything else, which NASCAR has now announced that they're going to up. They're upping the $50,000 fine to $100,000. They're upping the 25-point penalty to 40 points, which takes away all their points, And I believe they already lose the stage points and everything anyway.
Yeah. Yep.
So, but they were...
And the part that, I guess we can talk about this for just a few minutes. The part that I tried so hard on Facebook and through conversations to explain, and it's to a lot of dirt track fans, Denny lost nearly every advantage to that win. And I think that's where the confusion comes in, that Denny has lost all advantage except for a few points. You talked about he basically got 22nd place points.
Right.
and instead of in a dirt track, you'd have gotten last place points or no points at all, depending on what sanctioning body you're racing with. You'd have lost all the money, all this, all that, and all that stuff. Denny lost all advantage to that win. It doesn't count towards the playoffs. It doesn't count towards the stage points. It doesn't, and the gap between last place points and 22nd place points, frankly, doesn't matter as of today. He was already in the playoffs.
Well, exactly. In this situation, none of that mattered.
Right.
He still made more money than the second place winner or driver.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there was still more money came to the team. But the interesting deal about this whole thing is on Friday at Richmond, when they talked to Denny Hamlin about it, he said, I'm fine with them taking wins away.
Yeah.
He goes, but if they take one win away from one guy, they got to take it away from the next guy. He goes, NASCAR will have to be consistent, and I'm fine with that rule.
Yeah, and at this point, I've been arguing with so many people on Facebook and having conversations. I'm fine with NASCAR making it more simple, and if it makes it easier for everybody, that the only other change is that Denny now has 297 wins to his career. That's not the actual number. By the time he retires, if he actually only has 297 as opposed to 298, if that makes everybody happy, then fine, we can move on. And the unfortunate part is that from Wednesday on, instead of talking about how good of a race Richmond or Darlington was and how full the stands were and how great everyone was treated to what we've been hoping for all year long, we were talking about a minor detail that it's all it is it comes down to a season-long stat and a career-long stat. Everything after that.
Richard Petty wouldn't have 200 wins.
Right.
Because Richard was caught with a 380-plus cubic inch engine. And it was kind of funny because Denny used that in his interview, and he said Richard Petty was caught with a big block engine. Well, he wasn't caught with a big block engine because that you look under the hood and you know the engine's not right. So, but it was a big cubic inch engine, and they still let Richard Petty have his win. They did fine Richard Petty the complete purse.
Yeah.
You know, so his fine was like $260,000, if I remember right.
And by the way, if you want to chime in on this, we'll take time and we'll hear from our listeners. Anybody that wants to talk about the different aspects of this whole penalty, if you want to get anything clarified, you can call us right now, 402-573-0590. And we're happy to talk about it, but we're going to kind of move on right now to the results after for last night at Richmond and talk about those. But I think it was important for us to kind of touch on it a little bit, that there is some confusion as far as what an encumbered win means, and to a guy who was already in the chase, it basically just means another position, and we'll talk about that here coming up with the reset for the playoffs.
It basically means no bonus points.
As opposed to Joey Logano, who his race last night, he had to win because his win didn't qualify him for the playoffs. He'd had such a bad year. I think he was sitting somewhere in 23rd or 24th in the playoff standings after Darlington, and he was just terrible. He'd had a terrible year, and that win at Richmond, had it not been deemed encumbered and illegal because of the rear suspension, then he'd have been in the playoffs. We'd be talking about him and I think it would have been Jamie McMurray that would be outside looking in. But instead, Logano, at a top-tier team, a top-tier driver. I mean, everyone understands how good of a driver Joey Logano is. He's set the world on fire ever since moving over to Penske. He just had an absolutely terrible year. Well,
and those things happen. I mean, you've seen in almost every sport that the champion can just, or somebody like two teams in the Super Bowl. Obviously, they're the best two teams in football that year. One's going to win, one's going to lose. And either one of those teams you can see come out the next year and just have a dismal year. The Oakland Raiders, when they lost to Tampa Bay in the Super Bowl 15 years ago, they turned around and come back and won 3 games.
Yeah.
With the same team, and that stuff just happens. There's so much that goes on through the course of a season.
Yeah, it's crazy to think how quickly that could turn around and turn into like a sophomore slump or a championship slump. And Joey was in contention last year, like you talked about. We kind of joked that after that Richmond incident earlier in the early Richmond race, that NASCAR caught them. This whole thing with Denny Hamlin and probably what was the same situation with Joey at the earlier Richmond race was that. It was an area that they had found speed in, because it's not that it was cut and dry, clean, illegal, but it was a gray area that NASCAR allows them to mount this at a taller or at a distance, and they give you a level of give. So
well, they give you a tolerance.
Yeah, that's what I'm going for. That,
but it's not it's a black and white area. It's not a gray
area.
area.
Because it's a lot like pit road speeding penalties. If the pit road speeding is 55, you're not fined at 56. You're fined at 61 because they give you a 5 mile an hour variance. And if you're 61, then you're 5 over plus 1, so you're now going to get penalized. So you're absolutely right. In that situation, is black and white. What I was trying to word was that there is a tolerance that these teams are trying to work with, and he was over. And we kind of laughed that Joey Logano since then has been terrible, and that must have been the gray area. He was pushing that tolerance and finding speed in that. And Brad Keselowski has talked about these cars. That rear suspension is where all the speed is right now for these cars.
Well, yeah, because everything else, is basically
equal.
the same.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they've got a little bit different shim package in their shock setups and stuff like that. But that just gets kind of down to the driver preference. But yeah, I've gone through in my mind knowing the way the rear suspension works, over and over, and I guess just depending on, I haven't seen exactly what they're doing. I've got a pretty good idea what they're doing. And that could be something that would change with like a track bar or a spring adjustment, on the right rear. Because actually track bar, when you make the adjustment on track bar, it changes both sides in the back, not just one side. We also got to talk, and I was with a very knowledgeable race car friend Friday night and hanging out and doing a lot of driving. And we were talking about this exact same thing. And he told me that, did you watch Denny Hamlin's burnout after the race? I said, no, I didn't pay any attention to it. And he says, well, he did a burnout in the opposite direction that most of the guys do them. That could have loaded the rear end the wrong way and caused him to go out of tolerance. So it'd be neat to go back and see if Joey Logano did the same thing when he got caught. Just something as simple as that could move that car enough.
Well, you nailed it right there. This goes back to a long chain of events. Remember last year during what was then the chase, now the playoffs, NASCAR came out with that rule saying you guys cannot swerve on the cool-down lap. NASCAR's figuring this stuff out quickly with the teams and with the help of other drivers that we've heard this term transformer car, and NASCAR is beginning to realize that these cars are being set up at the shop, and they're rolled out, and they go out to practice, and they go out to qualifying, and everything is perfectly fine. And that's why Denny passed pre-race inspection, qualifying inspection. He passed all the inspections. But when they go out for the warm-up lap at the beginning of the race, they're jerking the car to one side, and it's setting the car up to the way they need it, and it's putting that skew in the back end so that rear fender, that spoiler, sticks out just a little bit more, and they've got more downforce. And then when they're on the cool down lap after the race is over with, they're jerking it back the other direction, and it sets the car back down. That's when Brad Keselowski came out with this term, the transformer car, because it's a completely different car during the race than at the beginning of at the warm up laps and the cool down laps, because they're setting these cars and then they're resetting them back to where they'll pass through inspection. And where they're getting in trouble is that they're not doing it right, and so then NASCAR's finding it. So NASCAR's trying to come out with these different rules to try to stop these guys from doing it. Team engineers and these fast teams are finding ways around this rule. Okay, you're going to tell us that this is the tolerance, then we're going to find a way to change it during the race and change it back after the race so that our car is faster than everybody else.
Well, but a lot of it, this same issue is about 90% of why the guys don't pass tech. And that's why they're getting all these, they have some guys miss an hour of the happy hour practice the other day. I think they did 2 45-minute sessions, so there was an hour and a half total practice. But some drivers were penalized a whole hour of that practice, which, as we've discussed with next year's engine rule package, half an hour practice will be more than what most of the teams use anyway.
That could be a big penalty if there's only an hour and a half of practice and you miss 60 of it. That could be a big penalty for you. But, we're at the point now where we've taken up all of turn one and haven't even got to the results from Richmond. But it's a really interesting, complex thing. And to sit here and say that, Denny passed pre-race and post-race inspection and yada, yada, yada. So why is he failing this? It's obviously the inspection process. These teams, guys, I'm telling you, it's incredible how smart they are. They know exactly how to play the media. They know exactly how to word things. They know exactly how to make their cars work, how to set them up. I mean, they have this whole thing is all played out to where we're kind of a gullible public, to where we don't understand how complex the situation is, and there's games being played everywhere. The team says one thing, and you look at the situation on the surface and say, that's a really good point. Why did he pass qualifying inspection and pre-race inspection, yet he failed post-race inspection? Come on, NASCAR, your inspection process. We sat there with Jack Roush, and Roush said, well, it's this and this, and you could hear Jack had a really good story lined up to the reason why all these teams are having pre-qualifying inspection issues. But then it comes down to the NASCAR tech official saying, yeah, but 25 other cars got through just fine.
35 other cars got through just fine.
So why did those cars get through just fine, yet something's off about our inspection process? There's two sides to every coin, and it's so funny for me as an announcer and a pit reporter and as a commentator on the sport to watch the NASCAR level and the dirt track level, because it's the same games. It's the exact same games being played. They just have to change the game just slightly to fit their sport. And dirt track fans or dirt track drivers, when they get caught, they say, well, I didn't know that. I mean, I had that last week and I passed inspection. Well, we weren't teching for that last week.
Well,
we were teching for this last week, and now we're teching for this week, and you failed.
That's the difference. I mean, at your local dirt track, you got one or two tech guys, covering a class. In the good old days at Sunset, we might have had 90 cars in the Pro-Am class and two guys to tech them all. Not everything got teched. You had your basic stuff that you knew made a big difference, your carburetor. You might pull the heads on the motors, in the feature or something. But you didn't tech stuff from 1 week to the next, And if you caught a guy cheating, then you tech that same thing on his car every race for the rest of the year because you had to.
It's such a fun game to sit here and watch and see these guys that they're pushing the envelope, and essentially that's kind of their job. They got to push the envelope, and as a tech official, you got to push back, and it's also fun for me. We had a fun conversation on Thursday at Quaker Steak and Lube. I did have fun, even though we were yelling back and forth at each other, and
which we do quite often.
Yeah, it's a heated conversation, but it's a lot of fun. But it's funny that even today, as you've been out of the tech official world for so long, you're the skeptic. It's always the team's fault, which
they did it.
I'm not criticizing you at all. That's the role that you have to have. You have to be the going in and looking for something, You have to be suspicious that they're at fault and they're doing something, and you have to go and find it, that it's there. You almost premeditate it. And the drivers, they're always, well, it's not my fault. I'm innocent, And it's so funny to watch that whole dynamic for me as the guy watching the whole situation unfold, because like I said, if we're at Kansas Speedway and watching the big NASCAR officials doing their job, or if we're sitting at I-80 Speedway or Eagle Raceway and watching these guys do their job, they have the same issues that they have to go through, and they have the same things that they have to, it's doesn't matter the size of the sport. There's always guys trying to skirt it and trying to push that envelope, and then the officials have to come back, and then the argument is always the same thing. That's always funny for me to watch. So again, my whole point of that conversation was when these stuff play out in the media and teams make their statements and drivers make their statements during the next race, that's not just off the cuff. Well, this and this is all premeditated. This has all been figured out. They've been told exactly how to say this, exactly how to word it. This was a meeting that happened on Thursday, on Friday at the track, and they know what they're doing. They're incredibly smart about this stuff.
Well, that's why they hire all the the media savvy people and the PR people and the marketing people to cover all that. Yeah. That's they're earning their money.
We got to take a break. We'll come back in turn number 2. Stan Cisar is going to join us, and we're going to recap the final day of the RaceSaver Nationals and the final race of the 2017 season for Eagle Raceway. It was the Nebraska Cup on Friday. We'll be back here on the front stretch.
This week's Young Gun is third-generation driver Little Larry Robinson. Robinson got his start in racing back in 2012 at the age of 13, racing go-karts, where he won track championships at Little Sunset Speedway in the junior and senior 206 classes. In 2015, Larry moved into the stock car class to compete with his role models, Grandpa Robinson, his dad, and Marty Steinbach. In his second season behind the wheel of the 53R NASCAR stock car, Larry finished 5th in the points at I-80 Speedway. Larry's goals for this season season include getting his first NASCAR stock car win and claiming the track championship at I-80 Speedway. Someday, he hopes to try his hand at racing an A-Mod and even late models if the right opportunity opens up. Make sure to keep your eye out for this week's young gun, Little Larry Robinson, in the Uncle Mick's Gentleman Club, Goodman's Classic Construction, Limitless Mail Medical, Larry's Auto Salvage 53R stock car the next time you're at I-80 Speedway. This week's young gun is presented by Craig Kelly of Sarah Kelly and Sewell Personal Injury Attorneys.
For almost 70 years, Sarah Kelly Sewell have been Nebraska's premier personal injury firm. Race drivers, fans, and their families have been calling Sunset Speedway's Craig Kelly for over 30 years. The IKS firm focuses first on your healing and appropriate medical care, then they focus on getting you great results. Craig Kelly and his experienced team at IKS stand ready to handle your injury claims in both Nebraska and Iowa. If you or a loved one have been injured, Google Craig Kelly or call him at 402-391-4000.
Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs has taken a page out of IMCA's rulebook and gone crate. These brand new low-emission engines will still have you white-knuckling it all through the Metro's fastest indoor facility. Joe's Karting is now friendly for all skill levels with their brand new Honda-powered engines. It's time to get to Joe's today and find out what drivers like Jack Dover, Shaylee Bate, and Andrew Kosiski have known for years. Located in Council Bluffs and online at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K.
Dan and Dirk are rolling into turn 2 with a little attitude on the front stretch.
Do we have attitude today, Dirk? I think it's a pretty calm day.
Yeah, we had sleep.
That's true. We did get a good night's sleep, so we don't have much attitude. A guy who's got a little bit of attitude in his step after a good finish on Friday night with his number 47, Cisar Racing. RaceSaver 305 joining us on the show now, the voice of the Speedway at Eagle Raceway. Cisar, how you doing, good sir?
And with his driver having a good finish last night.
Yeah.
I'm doing pretty good, and like I said, you guys were talking about getting sleep. Well, some of you had sleep last night, but some of us ventured out to Junction Motor Speedway and with the Nebraska 360s and NCRA sprint cars, and my guy had an awful good run out there last night, as Dirk mentioned. Cody picked up a big win, $2,500. Picked up the win and pretty much dominated the race.
Awesome.
So it was really a good night out there for him.
Dad's birthday too, pretty good birthday present for the old man.
Oh yeah, he said that's the first time I think in like 8 or 9 years they raced on his birthday, and he was competing in mini sprints quite a few years ago, and he picked up a win on Tracy's birthday that night. But like I said, all in all, they had a great field of cars. They had 27 cars, 360s out at Junction last night. It was a really good night of racing out there too. But I know we're here to talk about Eagle and their last two events.
Yeah, let's recap the Sunday of the RaceSaver Nationals. I got to say, I don't know if I said this enough last Sunday, but there was about over 100 cars on hand for the RaceSaver Nationals, and the two nights I got to watch, 14 heat races. There was so many. There was an H feature and just such amazing racing, and you got to throw your cap down to some of the best sprint car guys in the area that were thrown in for the race and trying to win that title. But guys like I was really impressed with Stu Snyder, who, if anybody was out there saying that you couldn't make any way through your races, Stu Snyder was the opposite of that.
Yeah, no excuses. Stu did a great job. He actually every night there was a driver that worked their way up. Of the 3 nights, there was a driver that worked their way up through the alphabet soup, and like I said, it was some great racing and pretty good track conditions. We had an awful dry track on Saturday night, but kind of overcame that deal. But man, Sunday was probably one of the best tracks, and then the following Friday for the Nebraska Cup, I think 2 of the best tracks that we've had all season, and really, quite frankly, in quite a while.
Yeah, I got to give credit to Roger. He's done a great job, and like we've talked about, one of the common issues that people always talk about with Eagle is that hole in turn 1 or that dip in turn 1. And I've cleverly, or not, I don't know about cleverly, but
the hole is gone.
Absolutely, I've nicknamed her Ethel, and Roger's found an amazing way the last month to get rid of Ethel and really give the guys a track that is nice and smooth all throughout all 4 corners.
I'll tell you what, and in conversations with Roger we've had, I said, if you could get rid of that hole in 1, we're going to put on some tremendous racing. And man, lo and behold, a month later, here we are talking about the great nights of racing that we've had.
All right, so Sunday at the RaceSaver Nationals, Dover, Kearney, and
Jason Martin
started on the pole, and
they started in the front row, and I tell you, probably for the whole 30 laps until Jack exited with some engine issues, you probably could have threw a blanket over those cars. They were never more than maybe 2 car lengths apart between all 3 of them for the whole race. And before we get into recapping the actual racing, we talk about we hype this thing every year. The drivers have done a great job. This is the 5th annual event, and this I really believe is going to be the breakout year for this event because it was all over the internet. It was the buzz. What a great job that this deal is. What a great racing that was put on all weekend long, and that the RaceSaver deal, it is the real deal. And 112 cars, you were alluding to over 100 cars. 112 cars actually took a green flag in qualifying action, and what can you say about that?
Yeah, and not just the racing action, but there's a lot of stuff going on for the drivers, and I was really impressed with everything that fans could experience. On Saturday, there was the meet and greet with the top 9 row. You could get hero cards autographed. You could play in dodgeball tournaments, and you could do the golf tournament with Stu Snyder and the Steve King golf tournament. There was so much stuff going on that it wasn't just show up an hour and a half before the race, have a couple of beers, and then watch the race. You showed up at noon or 1 o'clock in the afternoon to get ready for the day.
Yeah, it's become not only racing, it's become an event, and that was kind of the ultimate goal for this deal. And as you said, they had the meet and greet for the top 9, then they had the car show for the top 18 on Sunday afternoon. Same deal in the courtyard there in autograph sessions, and it was amazing how many fans came early and came and visited with the drivers and stuff. And one of the neatest things, and you can see the videos on YouTube or on Facebook, the driver introduction deal, where they shut all the lights out and everybody had the glow sticks in the crowd, and it was a capacity crowd from the high rise to turn 1 all the way down to turn 4. With the lights out and all the fans with the glow sticks waving those things around. We had the follow spot, did driver introductions, and while they did the final tuning on the track, a little bit of last minute farming on the track surface. That was really a neat experience, and I tell you what, that's one of the things that maybe is going to set us apart somewhere down the line.
Yeah, that somebody videoed that and put it on Facebook from over in the pits there, like close to turn 4, and it was pretty cool to see.
Very cool to see. Yep. Well, let's talk about the racing action.
Yeah.
The fastest 27 cars started 3 rows wide and 30 laps the distance. Another thing that amazed some of the fans and comments were made, we ran 25 laps before the first caution flag.
Wow.
With 27 cars, with the first yellow flag was 25 laps into the race. And although it didn't help us out very much, we were starting back at 17th, and to try to get to a good lane, started in the middle row, just where we didn't want to be. But everything turned out, everybody minded their manners on the first few laps, and gradually began to work our way up through the field, and ended up with a 13th place finish. But here's your top 10, and this is like the who's who. Andy Schaus out of Oklahoma City comes home with a 10th place finish, and you talk about the alphabet soup. This guy started in the C feature on Sunday and worked his way all the way up into a 9th place finish in the championship feature. That was Luke Cranston out of Holcomb, Kansas. Finishing in the 8th position out of Lincoln, Nebraska, car number 14, Joey Danley. Finishing 7th, also from Lincoln, Nebraska, the 1R of Matt Richards. Finishing 6th from Panama, Nebraska, car number 7KX, Toby Chapman. And finishing in the 5th position, your 2-time, and now he will be the reigning track champion at Eagle Raceway out of Eagle, Nebraska, car number 12, Tyler Durkee. Your top 4, Jake Bubach out of Arvada, Colorado, and he was driving the car that John Carney won with in 2015. Kevin Ramey out of Fort Worth, Texas. Kevin picked up the Jake Ida Memorial Race of Champion. Just a little preview of things to come for him. And Ramey's a pretty tough competitor. He's been around for more years probably than he'd care to remember, but he has a great time racing. He hinted at retirement, this past year, but he got about halfway through the season and couldn't stand it. Came back, started racing again. He comes home with a podium finish, finishing in the 3rd spot. Your 2015 champion, who was never more than a couple car lengths back the whole race long, John Carney out of El Paso, Texas, driving for a different car owner this year, but he comes home with the runner-up finish, and Jason Martin, who's originally from Liberal, Kansas. When Eagle Motorsports relocated to Lincoln, Nebraska to build Eagle chassis and Cheney and some of the different mini sprint cars, and that Jason relocated to Omaha to work for EMI, and he picked up the win. So he's a Nebraskan now. Top 10 spots in that A feature, 5 Nebraska drivers, which is a pretty good representation against the best of the best in this RaceSaver division.
In recent past, can you remember a time when the RaceSaver Nationals top 10 were so heavy with Nebraska drivers?
Well, I believe maybe the first year.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, it really is amazing. And if you look at guys that maybe just didn't quite crack into that top 10 that we talked about today, but there was a pretty good, I believe there was, I had the stats, but I don't have them with me this morning. I want to believe there was 14 out of the 27 drivers that were Nebraska drivers, but there was a driver from Pennsylvania, driver from California, 2 drivers from Colorado, I believe, 2 drivers from Oklahoma, 1 from South Dakota, and it was a lot of Texas drivers. I think 5 Texas drivers in the A main event. So I mean, this is the real deal. It's kind of growing like wildfire, and to see the number of cars that came from Pennsylvania this year and California that made the long haul, it's on the map, and like I said, the way this year's deal turned out with the track conditions and with the event atmosphere and everything like that, I think it's going to go a long way to grow this thing in the future.
Great move for Jason Martin. He's been strong lately, and he had a great run Sunday for the RaceSaver Nationals.
Well, yeah, he's been one of the guys that was going to be on the favorites list. He won the last 2 weekly features at Eagle Raceway, and there were only 4 drivers that won more than one feature this year. Out of 17 events, we had 13 different feature winners. So it gives you some kind of an idea about the parity in this class and about the quality of the competition, how tough it is down at America's home track.
Moving on to Friday night's finale for Eagle Raceway, the Nebraska Cup, the super late model, Malvern Bank super late models in the house. Also the RaceSaver 305, so the Sprint Series in Nebraska. That was your guys' championship night. And then we had the 410 Wingless War Series.
Yep, the Power Eye War Series based out of the Kansas City area. They put on some great racing. Their points leader, Corey Wyatt, picked up the A feature win. And a couple local guys cracked the top 5 in the results. Terry Richards out of Denton, Nebraska, took the wing off. And I think he's going to be kind of a regular with that series. He really likes racing without the wing, and he's going to do a little traveling in 2018 and race the RaceSaver car a little more sparingly, but he's going to go non-winging it. Junior Parkinson picked up the third place position. Warren Johnson, not the drag racing Warren Johnson, but Warren Johnson out of Missouri in car number 42 came home in the 4th spot. And Ryan Kitchen, who has been racing with the non-wing group now for about 2 years on a regular basis, rounded out your top 5 finishers in the war sprints. And I was
really impressed with Terry Richards' run. I mean, he doesn't run with these guys very often, but he led a majority of that race, and not only led, he dominated.
He's just starting to run with those guys, and he has expressed an interest to race with them full time or close to full time in the future. And he'll do well. He'll do well. And another guy that races with him, he's not going to make the switch, but he does have a second car, and that's Matt Richards. And I've talked about Matt before. When I first saw Matt race in the modified division down at Eagle, and this goes back into the probably 1990s, I said, man, there's a guy who really knows how to run that roof. He's up on the high side, and he loves running up there. He's a good momentum racer, and when the sprint car division turned into the RaceSaver class, he was making it a little more affordable for guys like him. He jumped on board, and he's had a great 5 years racing the RaceSaver sprint, and now has a non-wing car. He gets a chance to go down to Missouri and race his son, who's not old enough yet to race with IMCA and that, but they'll take both cars down there and get to race together. And we talked about the family thing many times before, and it's great to see those guys. And that Richards name is going to be around for a lot of years because Cade is going to be a comer as soon as he gets the chance to start racing up here at Eagle also.
Moving on to the Malvern Bank Super Late Model Series, it's no shocker to see who ends up winning this race, but it wasn't an easy run for him. He qualified a little bit farther back in the field and had to make his way through a tight pack.
For the most part, I think those guys, I believe they had like 28 cars in attendance, which is a good field, for those guys. hats off to Jay Burdick out of Malvern Bank, for really backing this series, and it's really turning into probably the premier regional late model touring series right here in the Midwest. And heat races went to Paul Glendenning out of Mount Ayr, Iowa. Chad Pospisil, Ben Schaller, and Kyle Burke picked up the fourth heat. They had two B-Main last chance qualifiers. Al Zeitner out of Bellevue, Nebraska picked up one. Brian Kaziski picked up the other one. And then moving into that 25-lap A-Main event. And it wasn't till probably the last maybe 10 or 12 laps. Kyle Burke picked up the lead. He held on for the win. Corey Zeitner came home in the second spot. Ben Schaller was third. Tad Pospisil fourth. And Jesse Sobbing rounding out your top five finishers in that Malvern Bank Super Late Model Series A-Main event.
And just because we're running a little bit short on time, we're going to go ahead and hop over to the RaceSaver Sprint Series in Nebraska. Going into the night, Toby Chapman was your series points leader by 4 points over Adam Gullion. Heartbreaker for Toby Chapman.
Yeah, Toby lost an engine in the qualifying, and there was some. Stu Snyder was going to loan him a motor. Even after the fact, we talked about it after the races, and they never really came and asked us, but we do. I was in the booth, and the guys down in the pits didn't offer, but I think if somebody would have approached him about Toby maybe running my car, they might have did. Toby's a great guy. He's been around for a lot of years. It was a heartbreaker to see him lose it, sitting on the sidelines and not being able to race for the championship. But by virtue of him not being able to start the A-Main event, that pretty much handed the championship to Adam Gullion. But let's recap the action. I'll tell you what, I was pretty excited and it was a very fulfilling night for me personally because we had a pretty fast race car. And in the practice, we were the fastest. In the heat race action, we were 26 thousandths off the track record. And, I think we finally arrived on that deal. Ryan King picked up the win in heat race number one. Jack Dover won the second heat race. And boy, for all weekend and for the past week, that was the glimmer of hope that Jack had because his luck has been nothing but terrible lately. Stu Snyder, by virtue of a DQ in heat race number three, Brandon Horton crossing the scales too light. Stu picked up the win in heat race number three, and Cody Ledger outdueled Tyler Durkee for the win in the fourth heat race. Mike Boston, to give you a little idea here again about the caliber of that competition. Mike Boston, 7-time track champion, qualified out of the B main event. And in the A feature, Tyler Durkee from the pole picked up the win in the Nebraska Cup. Cody Ledger started in the sixth spot. And he got to second just about a little after that last caution flag with 12 to go and started running him down. Didn't quite get it done, but congrats to Tyler Durkee on the win and a second track championship. Jason Danley, who had a great run, comes home in the third spot. Jason Martin, the winner of the Nationals, comes home fourth, and Matt Richards rounded out the top five. So it was a pretty good deal there, all in all. Capped off a great season at Eagle Raceway. And we touched just a little bit earlier that race from JMS last night. 27 sprint cars in the house from the Nebraska 360 Sprint Series and then NCRA sprint cars. Cody Ledger picked up the win. Jason Martin closing pretty fast on the end. Cody was tied up in lap traffic, and Jason made it really interesting on the last lap. Seth Bramer was third. Jeremy Campbell and Don Drow Jr. rounded out the top five finishers.
All right, Stan, always do appreciate you joining us on the show. You can take a couple of Sundays off, but we're going to have you back on to give a full recap of the 2017 point standings for Eagle Raceway.
Oh yeah, we got a lot of laps to turn yet before this season's over with.
Absolutely, and also like you said, with the Nebraska 360s, you've got the Fall Brawl coming up September 30th, and probably a couple of races between then.
Yes, sir. Park Jefferson, the Iron Cup this coming Saturday night. 360s versus the Minnesota Sprint Touring Series that'll be taking place up there.
All right. Thanks a lot, Stan. Have a good Sunday.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Stan.
We're going to take a break. We'll come back in turn number 3, and we will announce the Crewman for a Day contest at Kansas Speedway. We'll be back here on the front stretch.
Are you looking to book your next outing? Look no further than Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Located just north of Bass Pro Shop, Joe's Karting can handle outings of well over 100-plus people. Bachelor parties, corporate outings, team building, birthday parties, and much more. Give Buddy a call today and reserve your outing. Joe's will even work with local restaurants to cater your event. Book yours today at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K. It's time to get to Joe's and find out what everyone already knows.
Need a reason to be at Kansas Speedway's first playoff elimination race? Here's some. Reason number 4. Last year's winner, Kevin Harvick. You better believe he's ready to burn it down again this year. Reason number 18, Kyle Busch. Love him or hate him, love him and hate him. But don't ever underestimate him. The Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series Hollywood Casino 400, Sunday, October 22nd. Tickets at kansasspeedway.com.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Quaker Steak and Lube is the official watering hole for the front stretch and the best place to catch all the NASCAR action today. Open at 11 a.m. with delivery available to Council Bluffs.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Feather the brake and get back to the gas. Dan and Dirk are headed into turn 3 on the front stretch.
Once again, thank you for joining us on the front stretch, the area's only racing talk show on the radio. Turn number 3 brought to you by Kansas Speedway. Tickets for Kansas Speedway's very first playoff elimination race of the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series are available now. Be a part of history for the Hollywood Casino 400, Sunday, October 22nd. For just $99 or less. And don't forget, kids get in for $29. Visit kansasspeedway.com or call 866-460-RACE.
And we're giving away 5 sets of those bad boys, 5 pair.
We're going to jump right into it. The 5-week contest. We created these years ago because the season-long contest, it gets separated. So, as much as we'd love to reward them, they've got their own prize pool at the end of the year. So we create these 5-week quick contests so that you can jump in.
Fantastic prizes.
You could jump in for absolutely free, play for 5 races. All you have to do is pick the driver you think is going to do best each weekend. Make sure the picks are in before the posted time, and you can't pick a driver more than once in the 5-week time frame. And if you get the most points at the end of the contest, you're going to win the prize pack. And the reason why it took us so long is because we have these conversations a lot, and there's a give and take between the teams and us. And we had a great time at Iowa Speedway with David Starr Racing in the Xfinity Series because our winners, David and Tara Ackerson, it's amazing what David Starr Racing gave them to do. They weren't just pushing tires and going through tech inspection and watching the race. They were actually helping the race team. They were catching the tires on the other side of the wall.
The pit sign.
They were holding the pit sign. They were listening to the race radios. They were jumping back and forth between the two teams. They had a heck of a day. David Starr Racing can allow them to do that. And then we thought this time, let's go with the big team at Kansas. Let's go with one of the big boys. And we happened to run into one of our friends from the PR world that works for Joe Gibbs Racing, and they said, you know what, we would actually be interested in doing this with you, so let's talk about it. And we've been going back and forth, and it just takes time because it's not just Joe Gibbs Racing that has to get the approval. It has to get the approval from the driver and his family and his sponsors, and so it was a long process.
Sponsors outside of the race team, the sponsors are the biggest deal they have to deal with. They can pretty much tell the driver you're doing this.
Yeah.
He's under contract. But the sponsors might not look at it as just something this simple. They might look at some liability deals, and if something would happen, so that's where the big holdup usually comes.
Well, the big reveal is this time we're going to do our 5-week contest with the number 19 team in the Xfinity Series with Joe Gibbs Racing, driven by Matt Tifft. And it's a big deal for us because we're going to get into one of these big teams. Joe Gibbs Racing, a top-tier organization for the Xfinity Series and the Cup Series, quite frankly. So here's the prize pack. It's similar to what we did at Iowa and what we did at Kansas earlier this year. The grand prize winner is going to win Xfinity Series garage passes, which will get you into the Xfinity Series garages on Friday and Saturday, October 20th and 21st at Kansas Speedway for the Kansas Lottery 300. And then you're also going to win 2 tickets for the Hollywood Casino 400 Monster Energy Cup Series race on Sunday, October 22nd. So you're going to be able to walk around in the Xfinity Series pits with Matt Tifft and that 19 team on Friday and Saturday. You'll have free access. Now, you won't be able to get into the Cup Series garage, but you'll be able to get into the Xfinity Series garage.
And we do do talk to some of the NASCAR officials, but it's kind of like a by-race basis. We haven't been able to work it out yet, but if somebody in the higher-up echelons of NASCAR has a few free moments and we can get you guys into the Cup garage, we certainly will.
Yep.
We don't promise it because we don't know if it's going to happen.
So you're going to win the garage passes for the Xfinity Series and then Cup Series tickets for the Hollywood Casino 400 on Sunday, October 22nd.
In the grandstands.
Second, third, fourth, and fifth will all win a pair of tickets to Saturday's Kansas Lottery 300 Xfinity Series race and two tickets to Hollywood Casino 400 Sunday's Cup Series race at Kansas Speedway. Rules: 18 or older, must have a legal U.S. Must be a legal U.S. resident. The points will run from this coming Sunday, 7 days from now. We'll start the race. We'll start the contest with race number 27 at Chicagoland, and we will conclude race number 31 at Talladega. By the way, that's the only part of this contest I don't like, is that it's going to end on a super speedway.
Well, if Joe Gibbs would have been just 1 week quicker.
Yeah.
Last night would have started the contest, which is what we've done in years past.
Yep.
But we've got to go with the cards we're dealt.
Yep.
So
we want to make sure and give everybody time to get signed up.
And we've got to have 5 weeks.
Yeah.
You know, the last contest, if we would have ended at 4 weeks, there were 4 people tied at second place.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I mean it
seems to be that 5 week
number.
number
We don't want tiebreakers. We want a contest to sort itself out, so where we don't have to make any thinking in our part.
That 5 week point is where it seems to shake out everything else, and we have an even top 10. I don't think we've had a tie in the last couple of races, the last couple of contests for these. In the top 5.
Well, the winners have been so good on their picking that it's kind of cut and dried on what's going on.
Contestants must submit their pick through our online website, NASCARpoolsonline.com. It's free to register and it's free to participate. It's absolutely free. Thanks to our friend Rick Havenridge at Wealth Partners for allowing us to do that. All you have to do to get the rules in the contest, to get signed up for it, I'll email you this sheet of all the rules, but it's really simple. frontstretchradio@gmail.com. You can message the Facebook page for the Front Stretch, and I'll send you the rules over that way too. But you have to place your pick each weekend on NASCARpoolsonline.com. Sending us a text message or a Facebook message or posting on the Front Stretch page doesn't count. It must be submitted through NASCARpoolsonline.com.
Very simple process.
The only other way that we will back it up, there's a couple of contestants that are just really paranoid that their pick didn't go through. They email me their pick each weekend. That's perfectly fine as long as I have it before the green flag waves for that weekend's race. Then I will manually put it in if it didn't count through the online contest. But NASCARpoolsonline.com, get yourself registered. We'll send you the link so that way you can get joined into the contest. It's free to play. And that's it. You could win. I mean, you can get this experience that we talk about that you can't get it any other way other than being a sponsor for this team, paying millions of dollars to be a top tier sponsor, being able to sit up on top of this pit box with the race radios, listening to the driver, the spotter, the crew chief, and the team owner every once in a while. You're going to be able to walk around on pit road if you want to and experience all of that. You can take pictures and videos, and it's such an open experience. You're in for such a treat that it's an absolute honor to be able to offer this to people. And
your host for the day is very, very deep into the NASCAR world, and he's going to make sure you have a very good experience. He's been doing this kind of stuff for a long time. If Joe Gibbs is at the track, you'll get to meet the coach. Mm-hmm. And Joe's very fan friendly, so it's really cool. When we did this with Brendan Gaughan this time last year, they got to meet and greet with Richard Childress. They got to walk around in the garages. They got autographs, hero cards from a lot of different drivers. There's so much stuff that you're going to actually stop at the end of the day and go, wait, I get access to that. I can do that. Well, Richard Childress is at the race every week. Coach isn't. Yeah. So, but if coach is at the track, you will definitely get to meet the man. And I got to imagine elimination race for the Cup Series. He's probably going to be there. I'm thinking he's going to be there. Whether he comes over to the Xfinity Series garage, that's going to be one thing. But you're going to have an opportunity to be. If there's any of the Cup Series guys driving in the Xfinity Series, you're going to get an opportunity to sit in front of them with the hero card and get it autographed. Probably Kyle or Matt or Denny, any one of these guys, or some of the other Cup Series guys that come over there. They may race. Actually, now that I think about it, they can't race in the Xfinity Series as a part of the rules.
So, but they may be over there giving pointers and tips to the Xfinity Series regulars.
I thought they could race everything up to the last race, up to the championship race.
Last night at Richmond last weekend at Darlington was the last chance because they can't race the final Xfinity Series race for the regular season and the 10 playoff races.
Yeah,
or 8. I think Xfinity has
think
8.
It's 8. But yeah, that's just such a confusing rule. But
it keeps it out to where it's pure Xfinity Series, guys. But still, you're going to have such a great experience. And those garage passes, if you want to take time and go around to the front, there's a tunnel underneath turn 1. You can go up to the front of the track. You can go out and see all the fan experience stuff, and your garage pass will get you back in
Sunday morning.
You could do that too. There's so much stuff you can do with these passes. Again, the way to get registered, email us, frontstretchradio@gmail.com. We were talking about it Friday night at Eagle. I've already got 2 people that have emailed me for the contest. There was a couple of people on Friday night. We're going to send it out on Facebook and on the email, so we'll send all this official stuff. But frontstretchradio@gmail.com. Just say you want to join the 5-week fantasy league, and we'll send you over the rules to get signed up for it.
It takes 2 minutes a week to play this game, and that's
so
it.
Easy.
And obviously, there are other people that take a half an hour or 45 minutes
before
the race. I mean, analyzing everything and going over to Mr. NASCAR's fantasy page and checking out his info. And, we did not ask Tara how much of that info she used when she won or if she was flying by the seat of her pants.
Because I'm the guy that I read over every stat, and I think that's probably the reason why I'm in 40th place. So sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. We've got about 10 minutes left in the show. We need to take a break and come back in turn number 4 to wrap everything up. But before we do that, we got to say thank you to Waste Bites, Truinity, and Surface Motocross, Branger, JPL, all these sponsors that gave us the green light for Matt Tiff's racing operation. That scared the heck out of me. I wasn't expecting clapping. Thanks to Toyota, thanks to Joe Gibbs Racing, and thank you to everybody that approved the contest. Thank you to Kansas Speedway, and a big thank you to Rick Havenridge of Wealth Partners for putting this on for us and footing the cost. I was ready that time. We're coming back in turn number 4. We'll recap Richmond. We'll talk about the playoff standings and so much more. We'll be back here on Front Stretch.
Numbers. In NASCAR, numbers represent speed, passion, guts, and glory. Because numbers represent drivers. Numbers like 14, 88, 42, and 78. Numbers that say, that's my driver. Don't mess with my driver. See your number live at Kansas Speedway's first ever playoff elimination race. The Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series Hollywood Casino 400. Sunday, October 22nd. Tickets at kansasspeedway.com.
Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs has taken a page out of IMCA's rulebook and gone crate. These brand new low-emission engines will still have you white-knuckling it all through the Metro's fastest indoor facility. Joe's Karting is now friendly for all skill levels with their brand new Honda-powered engines. It's time to get to Joe's today and find out what drivers like Jack Dover, Shaylee Bate, and Andrew Kosiski have known for years. Located in Council Bluffs and online at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K.
For almost 70 years, Cisar Kelly Sewell have been Nebraska's premier personal injury firm. Race drivers, fans, and their families have been calling Sunset Speedway's Craig Kelly for over 30 years. The IKS firm focuses first on your healing and appropriate medical care, then they focus on getting you great results. Craig Kelly and his experienced team at IKS stand ready to handle your injury claims in both Nebraska and Iowa. If you or a loved one have been injured, Google Craig Kelly or call him at 402-391-4000.
Any driver will tell you that the key to winning a race is preventive maintenance. Pat at Eccles Heating and Air can make sure your wallet is on the winning side with a preventive care package. Pat will look over your existing unit and make recommendations to make sure you're toasty warm this winter. Drivers trust Pat at the racetrack with their safety, so you know you can trust him with your home heating. Call Pat today at 402-331-1755 and schedule your heater checkup. Eccles Heating and Air.
Dan and Dirk are live for one last corner. Give them a call now at 402-573-0590.
Welcome back to the Front Stretch. Rolling into turn number 4. Just about ready to wrap this baby up. Coming to the checkered flag. Got to say a big thank you to Pat Eccles at Eccles Heating and Air for supporting the show. I know we got a bunch of people that They love the front stretch and everything that we try to do each and every weekend with our recaps of races and commentary and interviews that we bring you guys. It's the only source in the area that's able to do that for you. You can always tune into NASCAR radio, but you're not going to hear guys like Shaylee Bade and Andrew Kaziski and Jack Dover and Cody Ledger and Scott Bloomquist, and we'll talk with the late model nationals next weekend. They're not going to bring you that kind of information. That's stuff that only the front stretch can do. And great sponsors like Sarah Kelly and Sewell, Pat Eccles at Eccles Heating and Air, I-80 Speedway, Eagle Raceway. Rick Havenridge, these guys that sponsor the show and help us get up and down the road. And a big thank you to Joe's Karting and everything they do. Also, a big thank you to our official watering hole of the Front Stretch, Quaker Steak and Lube. Chris has been a big supporter of this show and gives us a lot of opportunities, including some stuff that Chris and I are working on for 2018 and 19. Some big stuff that's going to be coming down that we're going to be able to offer you guys through Quaker Steak support. And also, our final 5-week contest, we're talking about the one we're launching for Kansas Speedway. Our final 5-week contest is always for that $100 gift card to Quaker Steak and Lube.
And Pat is also, for those of you that don't know and those that aren't in the racing world, works with the fire and safety crew. He works out at I-80 Speedway, but he actually also works at, he'll be down at Kansas Speedway this fall.
Yep.
Working the whole weekend down there. So
I always like to find him and try to scare the bejesus out of him because he's always so attentive of what's going on. Kind of like me when I'm so into talking about the rules, and then our tremendous board op plays a sound effect, and I wet my pants just a little bit.
This year you can walk up and just start clapping behind you.
All right, turn number 4. We got to talk about the results at Richmond. Tim's on the line, giving us a call at 402-573-0590. Tim, you're on the front stretch. What's happening, bud?
Not too much, brother. How are you?
Doing good. What can I do for you today?
Well, I didn't get a chance to watch the race last night because I was watching Oklahoma and Ohio State, but...
What was that? Were they playing badminton, or what were they playing?
Tiddlywinks.
I knew it had to be something important if you skipped the race for it.
Yeah, I know it. I'm not such a loyal fan, I guess, but the only reason I called is trying to join that pool, that online pool.
Yeah.
What is the pool ID and password for your pool?
Do me a favor. Send me an email at frontstretchradio@gmail.com.
Okay.
And I will get you that pool information because, quite frankly, I've been a little busy lately and I haven't actually created it on the website yet. So I'm going to get that created today after the show, and I'll get it ready to go. So I don't have it yet, but if you email me at frontstretchradio@gmail.com, I'll get it over to you.
All right, bud. Thank you.
All right. Thanks,
Good luck, Tim.
Have a good day. You too.
All right, recap the results last night at Richmond. So, Tim, stay tuned. Listen to this because it was a heck of a race. Just when you think Martin Truex Jr. has got it locked up again, he's going to get himself a stage win and the race win for 6 bonus playoff points, the caution comes out for the 15 car, and everything gets shuffled around.
Yeah, loses the lead in the pits. Kyle Larson, Young Money's boys got the...
Was it Logano that had pitted a little bit back in his pits, which made it tough for Truex to get out, which then made it tough for him to keep that lead?
Yeah, if I remember right, it was a 22 car.
Just
happened.
Yeah. And that's maybe it was... You could always look at that and say maybe that was team orders of like, hey, pit a little bit... Because the leader is behind you, and you could help out maybe our other Ford friends.
Believe me, he knew the leader was behind him, and
that's one of those little tricks they play.
And Joey was starting to win it.
Yeah,
I mean, he ended up second.
Absolutely.
So he was helping himself. He wasn't worried about what anybody else was doing.
Odd thing that happened on the track, coming to one of the cautions, and it seems to be NBC was doing a really good job of playing all the odd things that have happened at Richmond over the year. This seems to be a common thing. It all boils down to we're fairly certain there was a miscommunication somehow. Either the ambulance driver was never told to pull out, or he misunderstood, and the ambulance driver was sitting right there in the entry to pit road and caused havoc because last time at Richmond there was a safety truck sitting up in the groove into turn 4, and drivers were swerving to miss it coming on pit road, and Kyle Busch missed the commitment cone, that little orange box they paint, and he got penalized while trying to avoid a safety truck. So the same thing happened last night, but it was in a little bit different of a spot where it was on the inside portion of the wall, and there was about a car width and a half between that and the track. the ambulance and the track, so cars went single file through there to make sure they made the commitment line, and then it created an accordion effect, and Matt Kenseth ended his night because of it by rear-ending another car.
Yeah, I mean, he hit that car hard. They were, I think pit road speed there's 55, I think. I'm not positive, but 50 or 55. So they were tootling along about that speed, and, you're in bumper-to-bumper traffic. Somebody smacks the brakes, and bam.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we're running out of time, so we got to move up the pace of the show just a little bit. Kyle Larson ends up getting the win. What, 4th win on the year?
4th win, but first time on any track other than a 2-mile track.
Good job for Kyle. He was strong all night, and there, Joey Logano, 1 spot too short for making the playoffs. He ends up finishing 2nd. Ryan Newman 3rd. Kurt Busch 4th. Denny Hamlin 5th. Eric Jones, Daniel Suarez, Jimmy Johnson, Kyle Busch, and Chase Elliott round out the top 10. Bad days for Kenseth. And that's really the only guy outside or in the top 15, top 20 that had bad days, other than Truex, who wrecked on the final lap, finished 20th. Kenseth 38th.
But to say how screwy that race is, Ryan Newman halfway through the race was just about to go a lap down and ends up running in the top 3. So.
Martin Truex Jr. is going to start the playoffs with a 53-point advantage over everybody else because he had the regular season championship and so many stage points, so many playoff bonus points. So he starts your points leader, 2,053 points. Larson is in 2nd. Kyle Busch, Brad Keselowski, Jimmy Johnson, your top 5. Harvick, Hamlin, Stenhouse, Blaney, and Elliott, top 10. Newman, Kurt Busch, Casey Kane, Austin Dillon, Matt Kenseth, and Jamie McMurray round out your top 16, and your 16 drivers, Boyer, Jones, Logano, Suarez, Bain, Earnhardt, Menard, Dillon, these guys not able to make the cut. They'll continue to compete, but just not for the championship. 3 races in round number 1. The big conversation is going to be how far can those 53 points take Truex. We're going to have to wait till next week because we just ran out of time. We'll do it again next weekend live from Knoxville to recap the Knoxville Nationals, the late model Nationals. Thanks, everybody, for joining us on the front stretch.
Get signed up for that game.
For Dirk Houston, I'm Dan Taylor. Thanks, Craig, for board hopping and scaring the crap out of me. We'll be back next weekend to do it all over again on the front stretch.
Kansas Speedway's first playoff elimination race is coming. Here's some reasons to be there. Reason number 88, it's Dale Jr.'s last Kansas NASCAR Cup race. We can all lift a cold one to that. Reason number 78, Martin Truex Jr., because underdog stories make the playoffs even better. Did I mention it's the playoffs? The Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series Hollywood Casino 400, Sunday, October 22nd. Tickets at kansasspeedway.com.
The official watering hole of the front stretch has you covered any day of the week with the best wings, great burgers, and amazing steaks. Each weekday from 4 to 6 is happy hour, featuring $1 off draft and well drinks plus $4 Luberitas. Mondays are kids' night. Tuesdays are all-you-can-eat wings for $12.95, and the lube even delivers to the Council Bluffs area. Like Quaker Steak and Lube Council Bluffs on Facebook for a full list of weekly events.
Get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Mid-America Drive, Council Bluffs.
This has been the Front Stretch Radio Show, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. To contact Dan or Dirk, find them on Facebook at The Front Stretch or email them at frontstretch590@gmail.com. If you missed any part of today's show or want to hear a previous show, subscribe to the Joe's Karting YouTube page, where you can find almost every Front Stretch show.